for example, when there are domestic issues or when there are conflicts in the family, who do we go for counseling? Our clan leaders, right? And so they do some kind of counseling to us. Now, of course, the counseling is very different because it's a very different culture. And so the counseling is more right? And so they really kind of lay it down, and they kind of lay the rules down and say you're supposed to be doing this. If you don't do it, you're in the wrong. But we really don't know what that means because they go home and we really trust that they're going to do that. And back in our country, it worked because we have a long-lasting relationship with them. We all live together. We all keep each other accountable. Every person in that culture kind of follows that. Here in the United States, it doesn't work so much anymore. And so, someone comes and counsels me and my husband, but they go back home to Warsaw. And I'm here and I don't see them. And so there's less accountability. And so we have to understand that, yes, while Hmong still do that and they value it as very important, we see a lot of broken marriages, broken relationships, because, again, it doesn't work because we are influenced by what we're living in right now, which is another culture and another value system. We also know that right now we have more treatment options. Back in the days, we really didn't. And so when we're talking about the anxiety where I read it, we all read it in Hmong, and where someone would say, oh, you're toda, or you're nigingla. And so they seek a shaman, or they seek someone who would be able to remedy that problem through a spiritual ceremony. And that works. And there are some times when it doesn't work, but you know what? When it didn't work, they had no other options, right? Or they went to go see Ito Sinangchia, or the Vaioliya. And it's all very spiritually integrated, and that was the culture. And yes, it was helpful, but here in the United States, we have that, plus we have other options like mental health counseling, psychotropic medication, which is just another word for medicine for folks with mental illness. And so what we have to encourage our Hmong community is that if it doesn't work, what we used to do for generations, if it doesn't work, then consider that we've been influenced by another culture and that there are other options as well too. So let's be open to other options as well too. And let's just not stick to one thing. And if you want to do both, that's fine too, because one doesn't compete with the other. They actually complement each other very well. And this could be one of the messages that you guys can put in your lyrics, is really just to say, we're not saying abandon what we've used for generations and generations. We're just saying it may not be as effective right now in this culture. And then, of course, we have all of these life stressors that we all deal with. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't have a stress-free life. I think we all have a stressful life. The key is, how do you manage the level of stress that's in your life? Do you manage in a way that's within this normal range, or do you not manage it and it gets to the point where you've fallen into that clinical range where the symptoms and the behaviors and the emotions that you're experiencing is hurting you, and it's not helping you to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of the more common mental illness are in the Hmong community. So you have a sense of what I see most when I'm working with our Hmong community. And so in the adults, we see that depression is the biggest complaint. It's the biggest problem. When they come in to see me, it's because so it's a lot of the complaint of poor concentration, poor focus, loss of interest, loss of appetite, sleep difficulties. And we also see a lot of domestic violence. But I touched on that a little bit about why I think domestic violence has been on the uprise lately, is because the old way that we used to counsel couples are broken down because the culture doesn't really sustain that system as much anymore, because we've got the court involved too. You know, most folks would rather go and settle a dispute in the court system rather than within the clan, because there isn't that much leverage in the clan anymore as a result of this integration of another culture. And we've seen, especially here in the Twin Cities, a lot of the homicides and the suicides. And I will tell you that those two items, if we were to back it up, if you guys can think of a case in your head, and if we were to kind of like hit the rewind button and go 2-3 years before the incidents, you would start to see some of those symptoms already of depression. You know, difficulty getting along, lots of fighting, difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite. But you know what? They didn't listen to that, because they were thinking, oh, it might get better, or they'll, or they counsel with certain folks, and it just kind of progressed to this. Or some folks just don't talk about it because they just think it doesn't help, or they just think we can resolve it on our own. And so it's important to get help early. I mean, you know, that previous slide says, when do we get help? Well, we get help when we start feeling like, oh man, I can't manage anymore. Today was a tough day for me. I could barely get out of bed. I don't know if I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm going crazy. Like I feel like someone's following me all the time, or I feel like my husband's calling me all the time at work, or, you know, and when you start to feel like you're not your normal self, you know it. But you can't just say, oh, I hope it goes away soon. I'm just going to wait and see. You can't wait and see, because if you wait and see, it's going to fall into that clinical range more, and the more it falls into that range and the more severe it gets, then we end up with something like homicide and a suicide. And so this is an important message again to get out there, because I think when we have a homicide or a suicide in the Twin Cities, everybody is affected by it. The whole Hmong community is affected by it, and lots of questions are being asked, and people are saying, well, why didn't we see it? What happened? And yet the signs were there, but because the culture itself is not used to this kind of phenomena, a lot of it is, well, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. We told them to go back and fix it. It's going to get better. Then we have the post-traumatic stress disorder. And again, we don't really see this in an everyday functioning. If you interact with an older person who is a war veteran, they won't come out and say, oh, I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Or they may not function in a way that you might see them as suffering from that, because or they keep it in the family. And they may not tell someone that they have nightmares. They may not tell someone that they're up till 2 or 3 in the morning. Of course, I hear it in the therapy room, but that's only a small percentage that comes into the therapy room as well. I'm sure there's a greater percentage of Hmong war veterans out there, and even refugees, or just our parents who were in the war, that are suffering from PTSD but are not telling anyone about it, because it is the culture that really enables them to just keep it inside of them. And so we really need to encourage them to get some help, because they can have a better life. Their quality of life can be improved. It's just a matter of being open to a different way of seeing things. And then we also have anxiety and addictions. And I think addictions is sort of a silent problem. Those who have parents or relatives who are addicted to opium, we may not talk about it. We know about it, but we may not talk about it. And those who have family members who are compulsive gamblers. I mean, there are some of those folks who go every once in a while, but if that's all you think about, if that's all you do, and that's where your money goes, and every paycheck you get, that's where you go in hopes of hitting the big one, then you are an addict. And most folks don't see that as a problem. But of course, those of us who work with compulsive gamblers and drug addicted folks, we know that it's a problem. But again, that's a whole subject in itself, because denial is such a big piece of that. But if that's something that strikes, that rings a chord with you, as far as, I have a personal experience with this, then maybe that's an important thing to put in there, because that's a huge problem in our community, that it's that pink elephant in the room, and not a lot of people talk about it.